Good evening and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. We're starting a new podcast tonight called City Central. It's going to be a weekly thing to go with our sister shows that are obviously Town Talk and Leeds Latest. There's going to be me on every week. You're going to have to put up with me every week. And then I'm going to have a different person with me every week. Neil Granger has agreed to join me tonight, a friend of mine from on Twitter. We talk quite a lot, don't we, Neil, about City and everything that's going on. And we thought with a new season, a new show, it'd be a good thing to do. So here we are, ready and going. I'm just going to tweet it out because we have had a few technical delays tonight. So we're about half an hour late starting. So sorry about that, everybody. But we are ready to go and we are going now. Neil, how are you?
Yeah, it's been an up and down day from a personal point of view, but that's not particularly interesting. Shout to everyone, we're here to talk about Bradford City, aren't we? And I think it helps everyone's weekend, doesn't it, when we have a win sort of first off. It's always nice to have a chat when we've won a game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the challenge will be if we go on a losing run and nobody wants to come on, but we'll see how we get on. We'll just start with game on Saturday, Neil. Obviously, a 2-0 victory, a decent start for us at home to Posh. I thought we were quite comfortable throughout the game. Just what were your thoughts on the game as a whole? Neil, what did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I mean, they had a sort of a little bit of a lively spell. We're at about 10-15 minutes in where they just came into it a little bit. But apart from that, I think we were pretty much in control and dominated most of it. I think we nearly, we hit the bar, didn't we, a couple of times. Connolly's delivery, which, wasn't brilliant in the first half, but you can tell he can cross the ball, which is something I think we've been wanting for quite some time. And I thought, we should have been up at half time, shouldn't we? In the end, I think I looked at the stats and it was, something like 11 attempts versus 2 or 3 or something or other. So we just needed, one of those to go in. But we certainly were well in the ascendancy, weren't we, in the first half?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I thought I were a little bit, not disappointed, but frustrated that we weren't in front at half time, really. I thought we deserved to be in the lead, and it was just one of those. I know you can say it about any game, really, but when you're as dominant as we were and you don't score, you're starting to worry a little bit about a sucker punch. But I didn't think in that first half they offered much, to be honest. There were only 2 things I can think of from Posh where I think they had a shot that McCracken saved, was sort of pushed at side from edge of box, and then they had one where they broke, and there was a little bit of confusion between Sarcevic and Connolly about who should have been picking up the attacking midfielder, and he had a shot from the edge of the box. But other than that, we were dominant, weren't we? Without creating lots of gilt-edged chances, we definitely did enough to be in front at half time, and it was a shame that we weren't. I had a comment come back to me actually from the post-match vid that I did, where someone said that we were as dominant. They didn't think we were as dominant as I'd made out. And that we have to remember that they hit the bar and they had a goal disallowed, and I was starting to doubt myself a little bit because I'd kind of like I watched the highlights when I got back, and the Sky commentator had said something about the goal was against the runner play, and I was like, what game were he watching?
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think because obviously he was talking about the first goal, which I think was in the 52nd minute, wasn't it? And I was trying to think, well, Peterborough just on top for the first 7 minutes at second half? And I thought it was I think it was relatively even, but I think it was still probably slightly sort of the dominant team. But, I mean, they certainly, there wasn't a period where you'd say that Peterborough were on top. They had the moments, but they were never on top. And obviously, once we scored, then you thought, well, we're going to go on to win the game, albeit there was one scary moment, I think, wasn't it, when it was 1-0. When I think their young lad on left-hand side, he played a 1-2, I think just got beyond Neufeld, didn't he? And that was a slightly unorthodox save that McCracken had to make, like sticking his foot out, and it whacked against the bar and came back, didn't it? I think that was the one piece of luck that we had. And, aside from that, there wasn't a great deal really to be concerned about, I didn't think.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, McCracken stuck out his foot and tipped it onto the bar, and other than that, there's not a lot really that you can say. Well, they did, was there? I think The only other thing they could really say that they could have a bit of grievance about, and I noticed the manager did mention it afterwards, because he was quite complimentary about us afterwards. I noticed that. I listened to Luke Williams' interview after I'd listened to Graham Alexander's.
I did as well, yeah.
Yeah, he spoke about what a tough test City were, a tough place to come, big physical side, and he was quite complimentary. But they did mention, or their interviewer mentioned the Jackson incident in the second half. Now, my heart was in my mouth a little bit at that point, because I think it was, were we 1-0 up then, Neil, when that happened? When Jackson...
Yeah.
And he had. I said to the lads I sit with, I said, I'm sure he's been booked, Jackson, and I felt we got away with one there. Did you think we got away with that a little bit?
Well, funny enough, I mean, obviously he got bugged into it just about the last thing of the half, and I didn't have a good view of that. And I know a lot of people said that they thought that was a really harsh booking.
Yeah.
As I say, I didn't get a great view of that, but I did have a really good view of the second incident because I sit in the Midland Road stand, and so I was just staring straight at it, and it was basically it would have been a poor decision if it had been sent off. It was just a sort of they were just running alongside each other. And he hasn't, and it just basically just clipped him on the leg just as he's running alongside him. He's not tried to foul him or anything like that. So it's very innocuous, but it's one of those that, some referees you think, is he just going to react and, sort of make a name for himself almost. But I mean, it was definitely not a booking. As I say, it was just an accidental when they're running alongside each other.
You had a far better view of it than me if you're in Midland Road, because I'm up in top tier at Cop. So it looked to us, we were a little bit, because I think a decision had just gone against him, and it looked like he'd got a little bit worked up and a bit better than maybe done some, but that's good to know that he didn't. And obviously he didn't get booked, and he stayed on. And Jackson, he didn't have a great game himself. I thought Phillips was an improvement when he came on, but we'll talk about the new signing shortly. I mean, Phillips. Yeah. The impression I get from Alexander is Phillips is still working his fitness up to where they want it to be. So that's possibly why Jackson started. And I'm a fan of Jackson. I think he's got a role to play. I don't really want to see him at right wing back, but he didn't have his best game on Saturday, but I'm sure his time will come. The one thing I do want to talk about, and it's been a bit of a talking point among City fans, is the midfield. Neil, I thought on Saturday I was pleasantly surprised with that midfield, because I've had my doubts about it. Obviously, a lot of City fans have said they want us to sign a central midfielder, and obviously Connolly, particularly at Stockport where he was before, played a lot of games at the back, and we've seen Sars further forward, but Graham Alexander's gone with those two, and judging by his comments today, he's going to stick with those two as well. It doesn't look like we're going to bring anyone else in, judging by the press conference today. How did you think they went on Saturday? Do you think that they looked like a decent partnership, or reasons?
I think they did on Saturday. I mean, I've been really impressed with Connolly from what I've seen so far. I mean, obviously there was quite a lot of comments, wasn't there, about is this a Humph situation again when he first signed? A lot of fans were sort of jumping on that, but I think once you'd heard both sort of Alexander and the player say, "Look, this is he thinks it's his best position. He's played in the Championship in that position. Alexander thinks it's his best position." Clearly, Gent and Sharp have signed him and watched him in that position. So I think you've got to trust them, really, I think, to be perfectly honest. And from what I've seen so far, he's just a very tidy, intelligent footballer. He's not flashy, but he's positionally, I think he's pretty cute. And he just seems to sort of, be in the right place at the right time, without, sort of having to shout and ball. But he just does the simple things really well. And like I mentioned a bit earlier, he just looks like he's got a delivery on him. Which I think all of us have been crying out for someone that we can rely on when it comes to corners and free kicks. And it was interesting to hear Alexander sort of give him a bit of a sort of going over at half time, saying you're better than that, didn't he? I think with his set pieces in the first half, because they lacked a little bit of conviction. But I mean, he soon put that right. I mean, he did put one really good ball in first half. I remember where we nearly scored. And obviously the corner was, it was a pretty carbon copy of the Baldwin goal from the previous week, wasn't it? The same corner. And obviously our old lone friend Alex Bass went flapping, and it was a fairly sort of straightforward header, wasn't it, for Gillespie to put in. But no, I've been fairly impressed with how Connolly and Sarcevic have dovetailed so far. The question will be when it's the teams that sort of pack the midfield and the ones that are perhaps a little bit more sort of dynamic in midfield, will they sort of, run through us? I mean, reading the article from today. I mean, Alexander's sort of thinks Sarcevic gets maybe a little bit of an unfair rap from some people, thinking he's not got the legs. They're saying he's got some of the best running stats at the club. You certainly think that, there's going to be times where, he'll need to be given a rest at his age, and we know his injury record as well, don't we? I don't think we're expecting him to play the full season, or that'd be a really big, pleasant surprise. But the one thing is, Sarcevic is a really intelligent footballer. You notice that sort of last season when he's more advanced. He just makes a lot of good decisions. He's sort of, in a way, it reminds me a little bit of Dean. Windass were a really sort of bright footballer. You might not describe him as maybe the brightest upstairs. To a certain extent, love Dino. But in terms of football intelligence, he's just got it. And I think Sarcevic is one of those type players. He's just very aware of his surroundings. And I think positionally, he's usually pretty cute. And, if he does play in that position for most of this season, which looks likely, he will chip in with quite a few goals. He's one of these that, he'll make a lot of good runs. We know he can finish. So without question, if you compare that to our central midfield of last season, there'll definitely be more goals. Even Connolly nearly scored, didn't he, with that belter on Saturday? I mean, he really, really wrapped the bar with that one. So I think the jury's still out, isn't it? But I think there's some positive signs.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's also worth noting that Sarcevic played deeper when he were at Bolton and at Stockport. He has played that role before.
He did,
Alexander's said, hasn't he, that when he had him at Fleetwood, he had him deeper. And he also was keen to point out after the match that on Saturday, Sarcevic was so far forward at times that it was almost like he was in line with Point and Phillips in the second half. So it wasn't actually that much. I think that the one worry is, as he's tried to sort of play down the fears today, and as you mentioned, Neil, is the one worry is that his legs as the season goes on. But we'll see how that goes. He does pick up injuries, like you're saying, and I don't see that being any different. But again, Alexander's pointed out today that he was at the top of the running stats on Saturday when they looked at it after the game. So he's got that engine on him. So hopefully it'll be a partnership that will build and get better over time. I agree with you what you said on Connolly. I thought his delivery will hopefully be a real bonus for us over the season, because that's something that fans, I've criticised it over the last 2 or 3 years, where Smallwood and Power taking set pieces, and we've not got the goals that really other teams do from set pieces. You remember, you think back to Phil Parkinson and the amount of goals we got from set pieces then, and we've really struggled to do that over the last 2 or 3 years. So 2 goals in 2 games from Connolly corners is a real positive for us. And if they can continue, like you said, they were very similar, deep to the back post, Baldwin against in the cup and Gillespie on Saturday. So fingers crossed that's something that we can build on throughout the season. He's also obviously pointed out today that he sees possibly as having more of a need for signings in the wing-back position, and he's pointed out that he can see Henry Cartwright and George Lapsley, can use them as his cover for Sarcevic and for Connolly as the season goes on. Now, obviously, Saturday, Tyreik Wright was an absence before the game, which is a blow for us, because I thought Tyreik had a fantastic season last season, possibly. Well, definitely his best. At times, putting his best performances in that left wing back position since he's been moved back there. So to lose him again is a bit of a worry. Are you concerned about that, mate? Do you expect that to be something that they'll look at in the transfer window, or do you think Torre will be the man to cover that position? Torre can obviously play left-sided centre half as well. I spoke to Jason McEwen on the last pod that we did and said that I would like someone who can play on that left side, because at the moment, if you were to lose 2 of Tyreik, Torre and Gillespie at any one time, you're short. Do you think we'll go into the market and bring someone in who can play there? And how much of a concern is that injury to Tyreik Wright?
Yeah, I think we've just got to keep his fingers crossed, because like you say, you were arguably our best player till he got injured, just towards the end of last season. I think it was definitely the best spell of form that Tyreik Wright's had. And I think he's won everyone over, hasn't he? Because I think there were a lot of people sort of still doubting him at the beginning of last season. He was still getting fair bit of criticism. I've always been a fan of his. I think sometimes he gets a little bit of an unfair rap because of his body language. I've noticed a lot of City fans sort of put quite a bit of credence on body language. You can put you can have a separate discussion about Humphreys, but Humphreys is similar. Or sometimes he doesn't look like he's trying. You look at the stats afterwards, and he might have been, but it's just the body language. Just sort of trotting about and just looking a bit too disappointed instead of the opposite, which would maybe like the Gary Jones type of player that's just always looks at it. So I really hope he's not out for long, because he's such a threat when he's out with his pace, and he's just improved so much defensively as well. At the back end of last season, where that was something that we were all worried about, weren't we? But he's definitely worked on that side of his game. So, but if he's out for a period of time, they will have to, I think, get another left-sider in. Toure came in and were great, wasn't he, on Saturday? He just sort of slots in and just even going forward, he were a bit more of a threat than he sort of has been. But just so reliable. There's one or two bits of control that just took balls down, didn't he? Played simple passes, 1-2s, good crosses in. Very difficult to beat. He's a real 7 out of 10er, isn't he, every week, Toure? And thankfully, he doesn't seem to be injured very often at all, does he? So, but they definitely need to. I think he said in the article, didn't he, that wing backs are the priority. So I'm pretty certain we'll bring both a left and a right in before the window shuts.
Yeah, I agree with you on Toure. I'll be honest with you, mate. Up until Christmas last year, his first season at City, I had him running for Player of the Year. I thought he was really, really good. Like you said, just a consistent 7 out of 10 every week, whether he's at left wing back, whether he's at left-sided centre-half, you can rely on him. And I also think this season, somebody like Toure will be really important, because me and Jason spoke on the pre-season preview that we did last week about just Sam Walker and Max Power going out of the squad. You're losing a couple of leaders there. I think someone like Toure and obviously Sarcevic, we're going to need players like that who can be a voice and have the experience for people to lead on. And I think Toure's role will be really important this year. And like you say, stepped in, it sounds like at short notice as well on Saturday to play that left wing back role, and did a job. And as you expect him to always do, I really like him. You mentioned right wing back there. That's the other area, isn't it? I think we're all looking at that. We might look at doing something in the transfer window. I mean, Josh Nerfield started like a train last year. Really, really exciting signing. Tailed off a little bit as the season went on. And I am concerned. I don't like the noises that have come out about all Apsley can play there or all Caden Jackson can play there. I'd like to see us bring someone in that can be out and out cover for Josh Nerfield, just in case his form tails off again, or he gets injured, or he just needs a bit of a break. Do you concur with that? Would you like to see a specialist right-hand sided wing back brought in?
Yeah, no, I mean, you think that will more likely be a loan than a permanent. I think it'd be quite difficult to displace Neufeld without importing his to and how well he plays. So, to actually bring in somebody that is sort of equal to him or potentially better, I think that'll be really difficult. We want budgets left, etc. So I think you'd be definitely looking at some sort of loan to give him sort of competition. Can Reece Welsh play there? I know he's generally a right centre back, but didn't he play a little bit at right wing back in pre-season as well? Or am I?
You know what? I honestly don't know. The only friendly I saw was the Accrington one, and he played right-hand side of centre-half, and that's what he's been billed as. But he's a young player. He looked quite quick, so he might be a role that he can play. I honestly don't know. He's a big lad as well, so 6'6". I don't know. Maybe he is somebody who in an emergency could play there. I agree with you, though. I think Nerfield's going to be tough to replace. The worry is that if anything was to happen to him or his form tailed off, we need somebody. Obviously, like you were right to point that out, because Ashby obviously came in last year and really struggled to displace Nerfield. Never really looked like he was going to do it on a regular basis. I think he had a really good game at Wickham, didn't he? And other than that, he was be back up to Josh. So fingers crossed that it does sound like the wing back positions are what we're going to look at doing something with before the end of the window, and I think it's a couple of weeks' time. Just on the other signings, really, Neil, obviously McCracken played, Gillespie played, and Phillips came on as a sub in the second half. How did you think they did on Saturday? Were you impressed with what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, McCracken's distribution looks good, doesn't it? I think the one thing that just really, really sort of classy. He's not had a lot to do, has he? I mean, we can't really judge him too much on his goalkeeping as yet because he's not had loads to do. But I think the early signs are very positive with McCracken. Gillespie was solid. Obviously, he got his goal, which was great. I thought it would just be an all-round solid performance. I think he seemed to sort of have a decent relationship with both Baldwin and Pennington. So it looks like he's slotted in. Early to say. I mean, Curtis Till had such a good season last season. It's difficult to say whether it be an upgrade. His distribution will definitely be better than Till, because if there's one thing that sort of let him down a little bit was, his distribution. The ball could go anywhere, couldn't it? Sometimes with Tilty, but he was brilliant at the defending, holding off people, and he had a fabulous season for us. But yeah, no, I think Gillespie looks to me like a really solid acquisition, and yeah, I mean Phillips, clearly he's got a goal in him. I think his goal contributions over the last few seasons at this level, so you're certainly guaranteeing that. And yeah, I mean the balling was fabulous, wasn't it? I can't remember too often seeing just a ball it so hard, and that's obviously just. I mean, I saw some people even in the Peterborough press actually blaming Bass, but I've seen it at an angle, and I don't think Bass had much of a chance getting to it.
No.
I don't know what angle you saw it at.
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. I mean, the comments from the Peterborough fans afterwards were quite critical of Bass for both goals, and now I can see it with the first one. He's come out and he's tapped a little bit. But I think their main point was that out of all the players they expected to make a mistake, they didn't expect Alex Bass to make a mistake. I think they're relying on him as being a key player for them this year. But yeah, that second goal, I don't think there was anything really. Like you say, he fizzed it across at pace, and there wasn't a lot that I didn't think that either the defence or the keeper could do about it. I mean, there was I don't know if you heard it in middle of road stand, but there were a right thud when Powell made contact with it put it back in there. It thudded in. So really good assist, really good finish, and I think that bodes well. I mean, we spoke again. City fans are talking about Nick Powell. I think he can be a key player for us this year. Obviously, you've got the caveat that can he stay fit, but he's managed to stay fit towards the end of last season. He's got himself through pre-season. He scored a goal, obviously, on Saturday, hit the post twice the week before, and I think he can be a real asset for us, particularly late on in games when Alexander's spoken about it, hasn't he? Beasley coming off, having run defenders ragged. I think Powell's the ideal man to bring on in that scenario. Hopefully, he stays fit. Neil, do you think it can be key for us this season? And what did you think of both his and Bobby Poynton's impact on Saturday? Because I thought Poynton made a real difference when he came on as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of that. I mean, again, a couple of lovely bits of skill, wasn't there, from Bobby? I mean, he obviously just knits things really well. He's got great balance, and a couple of little jinking runs, and then he plays the ball. Simple balls sort of thing. He doesn't try and overcomplicate it a lot of the times. Of course, he'll lose it occasionally, but he's just really good at sort of knitting it together and getting us going forward. Is Bobby? So I thought he had a fine half. Obviously, replaced Swan, didn't he? He was a little bit sort of off it. It felt a little bit in the first half. This one, he's obviously had a great pre-season, but I mean, it's great if you can bring Bobby on, and something tells me he'll probably play on Thursday. Will Bobby? Just going back to Phillips, who obviously I'm enthused about. Just one thing that I did notice, just defensively, there were a couple of little sort of moments where he got a little bit out of shape defensively. Obviously, we're down my side, down the Midland Road. There was one rash challenge as well that was right in front of me where he got booked for it, which were a little bit naughty. And just, as I say, I think it'd be a fine signing, but just in the system that we play, and obviously the high intensity that Alexander demands, it's just one to watch. I'm thinking for some of those sort of away games where we're going to have to dig in. Will he sort of sacrifice Phillips' flair for maybe like Jackson's work rate on stuff like when we need to be a little bit, because you'll get Jackson running up and down all day. I'm not sure you'll get that from Phillips. You obviously need to be in as advanced areas as possible, but it's just something to keep an eye on, because we've got a system that works really well, and with everyone pulling in right direction, we're a really really good unit, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that's the key word, isn't it? We're a unit. This team is a real unit. There's no individuals really. It's all pulling together in the same direction. I think it's a good point you make about Phillips, because the one criticism that Barnsley fans had of him was his work rate defensively. They said he'll chip in with goals and assists, and as you mentioned, his goal contributions over the last couple of years at Barnsley have been phenomenal, really. And I think that's probably the reason. I mean, people have said, a couple of people have suggested him as a contender to play in central midfield, and I just don't see that at all, because I don't think that his attributes suit it. He's always, from what the Barnsley fans say, he's always done better when he's played as a 10 rather than as an 8, because possibly that defensive reliance isn't on him the same. But he will have to chip in with that work rate, and I think even as that right-sided 10, he's going to have to contribute defensively at times. And you might be right that Jackson or Lapsley perhaps get the nod in certain games to play there when we're a little bit worried about the team going the other way. And as I mentioned previously as well, Alexander has commented, hasn't he, about not directly, but sort of indirectly about his fitness and getting him up to speed. So hopefully when he gets up to that level, we'll see a little bit more of him. But I'm really excited by what we'll get for him, particularly in terms of I think we're going to be a lot better, or I hope we'll be a lot better going forward this year with the signings we've made up with that top end of the pitch. Just before we finish, Neil, were there anything else that sort of sprung out to you regarding the results in League One on Saturday? Obviously, Sheffield Wednesday got a win. I think Stockport got a win over Plymouth. That was a big one, wasn't it? And obviously, Leicester drew in their first game. Anything else that sort of stuck out to you at League One?
Did you see the Barry Bannon miss, Gaz?
I did.
Yeah. I mean, that was, geez. I mean, that's the classic. I mean, he's obviously a really good footballer, he's Barry Bannon, isn't it? That's just a roll in with your right foot, but he's so left-footed that he obviously went with his main foot and he screwed it wide. I mean, I think the defender had a nightmare that came on. He's the one that headed it back. I think he might have conceded a penalty as well. So he sort of had a bit of a shocker. But if you look at his body language, he already thinks Bannon scored. You know, I mean, you tell it his body language, and then obviously it goes wide. It's incredible. Misses that. I mean, obviously our friends down the road managed to win 3-0. That looked fairly comfortable. Let's say they were playing for 10 men for 70 odd minutes. So they've had obviously a decent start, haven't they? The game of the day they won at Reading Luton one, wasn't it? I mean, you get an hat trick in 30 odd minutes and end up losing 4-3 when you're 3-1 up at half time to a 95th minute goal. That's not going to, because I mean they've not taken to Liam Richardson really, have they, at Reading? So that's not going to endear him any further, is it?
I think that's a key point. What an away end that'd have been to be in, wouldn't it? What an away end there. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I saw actually on Twitter, I've actually read some comments from Luton fans at half time, and obviously we saw what a good player that Casey Palmer were against us last season, who's re-signed, and I think he was sort of he lost the ball for one of Marriott's goals, so he was being slated by some Luton fans at half time, saying, this Palmer, he's a bit flashy, but he just loses, he keeps the ball far too long, so there were a few comments like that, and then 10 minutes later, he's got 2 goals, it's 3-3, and he's the right player as his Palmer. I'm glad we've got him, one of the best players in the division. It just shows you like the football fan sort of thing, what can happen in 15-20 minutes. Like, it's very funny.
It's just football, that, isn't it? Like you said, that's the life of a football fan, a football player. I mean, I was surprised when they were. You said they were 3. I think they were 3-1 down, weren't they, Luton, at one point?
Yeah, 3-1 at half time. It was. Yeah,
and I was surprised at that. I mean, Plymouth lost as well. I've got Luton. I'm tipping Luton and Plymouth to be up there this year. I mean, Plymouth got off to a horrid start last year under Cleverley. I mean, the fact the place was, you saw the videos online that it was just toxic, wasn't it, at their place at times. And then he managed to turn it around as the season went on, and they just narrowly missed out on the playoffs. So it's similar to, obviously, Luton when Wilshere went in. I think there were a little bit of discontent there at times, but come the end of the season, they almost made the playoffs. So I think that them two will be up there. I was surprised to see Plymouth get beat. Stockport, I were unsure how they'd go this year without Challinor, and obviously there's talks of the budget being cut there, but they've got off to a good start, and I think they've signed a lad from Man United today on a 3-year deal, which looks a decent signing for them. So I think they're a good start for them. For us at City, what's the expectation, mate? What's the target for the season for you? Do you think we can have a repeat of last year? Do you think we can get the top 6 again, or are you a little bit more reserved? I mean, my only concern is that we did overachieve in my mind last year. I didn't expect us to do as well as we did, and my concern is that if things don't go, or we don't hit the heights straight away that we did last year, that, you know, what Valley Parade can get like, and people turn a little bit. And I really, really don't want to see that. I want to see a bit of patience. And I want to remember where we were 2 or 3 years ago and how far we've come. And if things do slow down a little bit, hopefully they don't. Hopefully we can make that top 6 and be up there. Like last year, we were in the top 6 all season. What do you expect, mate? What do you think's a realistic aim for us this season?
Well, I think I think I'd expect us to be strong at home again. You know, whether or not we can be as strong, you know, it's a big ask, you know, doing what we've done, you know, certainly last season and obviously even the season before. But, you know, so I think we'll be really hard to beat again at home. There's obviously a question mark. I mean, the away form wouldn't have felt as, when you look at the final total, what were we, 8th or something like that, so 8th or 9th. But clearly after Christmas, it was bad. You know, we was losing most weeks, weren't we? You know, it's just that the first half of the season, we were just really difficult to beat on the road, and it just flipped as soon as the new year came around. So, again, you just don't quite know what to expect, do you, away from home? I think that's the question mark. But I'd be surprised if we're not in and around it, because the squad does look stronger. You're right what you said earlier, Gaz. I think there's more goals in the team, you know, with the likes of Beasley and Phillips in it. I think that makes us look a little bit more potent going forward. Now, whether the midfield conundrum against the better teams, whether or not that might make us a little bit more vulnerable, yeah, that's going to be the question, isn't it, really, to be honest? But I'll be surprised if we're not in and around it. You know, if we just miss out on the playoffs, I don't think it's a terrible season or anything like that. You know, if we finish top 10, it's certainly not a disaster, as long as sort of the signs are still positive. But I'd be surprised if we're not in and around it. You know, we just look to be trending in the right sort of direction. You know, there's a lot of teams, I think, like you mentioned, your Lutons and your Plymouths, that you think are going to be in and around it. Stockport started strongly. Like Leicester are an interesting one for me, because they were really fortunate to get a point against Notts County on Saturday. I watched virtually the full game, and there was some classic Russell Martin football, you know, where they're tapping it around the back and nearly giving away chances. I'm thinking, is he going to adapt, or is he just going to be, you know, trying to play that sort of football in League One? I think, you know, if he plays that football against us, we've got every chance with the way that we press and harry. So Leicester's a really interesting one. I've really no idea. They've got some really, really good footballs that are way too good for this level, but that doesn't always translate when it comes to sort of results. But I'm cautiously optimistic, Gaz. I think we should be in and amongst it.
We should. Go on, sorry, mate.
Yeah, but you know, if we don't make the playoffs this season, I don't think there should be a meltdown. Put it that way.
I think you're right. I think we showed last year against those possession-based sides what we could do, especially at the start of the season. And obviously, teams started to change the tactics, didn't we? And it'd be interesting to see, as you point out, whether Russell Martin has to do that. Because if teams play against his side like we did at the start of last season, he's going to really struggle. I'm interested to see how them and Sheffield Wednesday go. I think they're a little bit of an unknown quantity. Obviously, Wednesday have had a big overhaul. The only other thing I can say about the top end of the pitch for us is I don't see us bringing anyone in unless Humphreys goes. If Humphreys was to go, there might be some addition at the top end of the pitch. I think we will focus on the wing back positions until then. But yeah, Wednesday, we obviously go to Wednesday on Thursday night. It's their first home game under the new regime. Real shame that game's not on a Saturday. I would have loved to go there on a Saturday afternoon. A lad that I go the game with, one of the lads went to uni in Sheffield. We had the whole sort of day out, semi-planned really, and then obviously they moved to Thursday, which City fans are happy about. And obviously, Sheffield Wednesday fans, I don't think we're 100% happy about it either. They've had an overhaul to the squad. How do you see that game going? Tough one up for us, isn't it? First away game there under a new regime. Neil, I think
it's a really difficult one to predict, isn't it? You know, their first home game. I mean, obviously that were a really good win for them on Saturday at that, for back at the level. Because I think Leyton Orient will probably do a little bit better than what some people think. They have signed some good players, even if they've lost Ballard. I think they've still recruited pretty well of Leyton Orient. So I think it's just a really difficult game to call. You'd like to think we can sort of, get in and amongst it. Louis Barry is there now, isn't he? He's obviously a really big threat. It's a big pitch as well, I think, from memory at Hillsborough. So I just don't know what to expect on Thursday. I mean, we're in a good spot, but as I say, it's just because we don't know what Sheffield Wednesday are going to be like yet. We've got no real barometer, other than one game to sort of judge it on, have we?
It's really difficult, isn't it, at the start of the season? Like you look back on the first game of the season a few months in, and you think, well, that's not telling you everything that's gone on for the rest of the season. I think you're right. I think Sheffield Wednesday, it's difficult to predict how they'll be. I mean, the atmosphere there will be cracking on Thursday night under the lights at Hillsborough. Their first game their first game under the new home game under the new regime. But we've got to go there with no fear based on how we've played so far in League One, both last year and on Saturday. I see it being a really cracking game. I think the big pitch is a good thing to point out. Louis Barry will be a threat. I noticed he was on the bench on Saturday. He didn't start for him on Saturday, so whether he'll start for him on Thursday night remains to be seen. I don't know. Real big game to look forward to. Just a shame it's not on a Saturday, like I say. We've had a comment come in from Darren. He thinks that we need to sell or loan Humphreys out and to bring in that central midfielder and win back. We discussed that earlier on. It does look like a wing back's going to come in. Graham Alexander did say in his presser today that he's not looking at a central midfielder. Me and Neil discussed that earlier on. It'd be interesting to see how that goes. I can agree that I see Humphreys possibly leaving. That there wasn't obviously he didn't make the bench for the Rochdale game or for the Peterborough game. Now, Graham Alexander spoke about him having been ill, and obviously we know he's been away with his partner having a child as well, so he's missed a pre-season. But given how he didn't really sort of settle into the side last year, there was that big debate about whether he was a centre-forward or a winger, and Graham Alexander was adamant he was a centre-forward, but we did see him play out wide a little bit more as the season went on. It's an interesting one with Humphreys. I wouldn't be averse to us keeping him, but given the rumoured wages that he's on, I wouldn't be surprised if he moved on either. Where do you stand on that with Humphreys, Neil, just before we finish?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, pretty similar to what you've just said. I mean, if he's on it, he's great to because can power past people, can't he? He's obviously got a trick in him, and those are the type of players that you sort of want to pay to watch, don't you? Driving past people and committing defenders. But he wasn't able to do it on a consistent basis. Albeit, I don't think his season was as bad as some people make out last season. He were a little bit in and out of the side. There were still some games where he really, really played well. And as I say, his goal contributions at the end, I think he was only behind Sarcevic maybe or something like that. So it's another one that body language that some City fans just won't take to him because he hasn't got great body language. But yeah, it seems it wouldn't be a surprise to me if he moved on to somewhere else, probably in League One. You'd have thought that's probably going to be the level that inquires about him. But I wouldn't be upset if we keep him. We get him fully fit, and I don't think he's going to be starting a lot of games. But to bring on, a sort of a driving Stephen Humphreys for the last 20-25 minutes, if you're needing a spark and needing a goal, then he's a talented lad.
Absolutely bang on. He's got a goal in him. He can get you a goal out and often. He can change a game for you. It's that whole thing. As you rightly mentioned, I hadn't used the word body language before, but you're spot on. People talk about his work rate and he's in playing with his head down and he's not working hard enough, not running hard enough, and being a bit greedy at times. He's just one of those sort of. We don't use the word much these days, but in football. But in 70s and 80s, you used to hear the word maverick. He's a little bit of a maverick, especially at League One level. He's got the ability to be a top player in League One. One of the best players in League One, but he's just failed to settle anywhere so far. And as you say, I wouldn't be surprised if he moves on, but wouldn't be averse to him staying either, just because he's a match winner. And the more match winners you've got, the better for any side, especially if there's been no fallings out or disgruntlement there. Thanks for everybody that's tuned in tonight. Thank you, Neil, for joining me. Sorry for the technical delay that we had earlier on. We were a little bit late starting. Next week, we'll be back at a similar time. If you can get your likes, your subscribes, your comments in, your retweets. We'd like a few more comments next week. Darren's obviously got in touch tonight. We had quite a lot of comments on the show for the pre-season preview on Thursday. It'd be great to get a few more people commenting as the show goes on next week and into the future. Thank you for joining me, Neil.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Onwards and upwards with the West Yorkshire Football Show.